Sita KC from Chitwan, Nepal, is a paraplegic and an international disability activist with the Mainstream Association of Nishinomiya, Japan. In her current position, she organizes events, counsels persons with disability, and works in community engagement. She is a fluent Japanese speaker, having taken up the language when she was 26 years old. She is also a fluent English speaker, having studied the language early in her schooling.
I grew up in Chittaun in South Nepal. Chittaun is a medium-sized village surrounded by jungle. It's famous for the national park that has tigers, rhinos and elephants. Sometimes we even had rhinos in our front yard. I am the youngest of 7, which was very difficult for my father because my mother died from cancer when I was 10 years old. I was a tomboy, no Barbie for me. I was always chasing balls, used to climb trees and play in the river. I was always moving. It's kind of a mystery. I was climbing a tree when I had a dizzy spell. The next thing I knew, it was a day later and I was lying in a hospital bed in pain. I had been transported out of the jungle in a bed seat. From there, I was taken by tuk-tuk over a bumpy road to the Bharatpur hospital. I am sure the bumping greatly added to my injury. The doctors diagnosed a T6 spinal cord fracture and I was taken by ambulance 6 hours to the Bir hospital in Kathmandu. The doctors were not familiar with modern spinal cord treatment. I was placed in traction for 1 month while my bones healed. I was taken discharged back to Chittaun without even a wheelchair. They just told me I will never walk again. It was impossible news for a 14-year-old girl. I barely made it out of the experience alive. I was getting urinary tract infection and severe bed sores. My brother Hira was a saint during this time. He left his university studies in Kathmandu to care for me, even though he washed me every day and I tried to change position in my bed. I still developed infected bed sores. At one point, when the dam reached deep into my hip bone, doctors were afraid I was not going to survive. I was sent to the hospital and rehabilitation center for disabled children in Kathmandu. The hospital's founder, Dr. Ashok Baskota, and his team gave me personal care. Over the next 3 years, I had skin graft all over my body and part of my hip was removed. For the first time, I was given a wheelchair and I was able to move around by myself. I also learned to use an intermittent catheter which spared me from the uncomfortable urine bag I always had attached to me. After 4 years at the HRDC, I was ready to go home. But once back in Chittaun, I felt uncomfortable. My friends knew me as an active, athletic girl, but now I felt like a burden. They gave me so much love, but I needed a fresh start. I moved to Pokhara, 5 hours northwest to Chittaun. I spent 6 months at the Green Pasture Rehab Center and then I enrolled as a vocational rehabilitation student. Just a few months later, I moved to an apartment with 3 friends and we started a small handicraft business on Lakeside, Pokhara. From this point on, I really started my independent life. The most incredible things that came from the shop was meeting my sponsor Baba. Baba was a retired Japanese television engineer who quickly became a friend. Soon after, he paid for my schooling and made sure I always had the best wheelchairs. After a few years, Baba moved to Pokhara and opened a homestay for Japanese volunteers. I moved into the bottom floor with my friends and we helped manage it. Baba convinced me I had no limitation and he opened dreams I never thought were possible. I met my husband Nozomo in Kathmandu. He was a physical therapist volunteering with the Japanese International Cooperation Agency. I was visiting from Pokhara and he decided to visit after we met. We continued Skyping and 1 year later we became engaged. The wedding was crazy from the start. It was rare for a woman with a spinal cord injury to get married. We began inviting people and almost 700 people came all over the country. It was covered by almost every paper in Nepal and we had to feed everybody. Even when I was 14, one of the first things I thought after breaking my back was that I will never become a mother. Not walking was bad enough, but now I thought I will never be able to have a child. But just a year after the wedding, we discovered we were pregnant. The pregnancy was difficult because I couldn't feel what was going on my body. Obviously, we were afraid of miscarriages. I spent the last 2 months on rest. But on November 14, 2012, by cesarean, I gave birth to Mana, a healthy, beautiful baby girl. It was really nice being in an accessible city, but I was lonely too. I am a village girl and Tokyo is the biggest city in the world. I was volunteering as a peer counselor at the Tokorozawa Independent Living Center. I was making friends and my Japanese was getting better, but I missed Nepal. Shunji Khadauta is the president of the Mainstream Independent Living Center in Nishinomiya, Japan. I met him in Nepal in 2006 when he was giving a seminar. I was invited to a Mainstream for 3 weeks of training, during which time Khadauta was a mentor. We kept in touch during my time in Tokyo and even when we moved back to Pokhara. When Mana was 8 years old, we decided to return Japan for her schooling. I agreed to come back as long as I could pick the city. Naturally, I chose Nishinomiya to work for Khadauta at the Mainstream Association. When I contacted Khadauta, he welcomed me with open arms and I found my new home. At Mainstream, I do community outreach to grade schools, high schools and even universities. We talk to the students about different kinds of disabilities, the challenges of independent living and the law that help persons with disability. We also do international outreach and event planning. We have lots of visitors from other countries, so we want to make them feel welcome and have a great time. We have lots of parties at Mainstream. I have been very lucky to travel all over Asia and even once to South America. This is quite rare for a woman in a wheelchair from a village in Nepal. I have been to India, Thailand, Cambodia, Korea and Dubai. But my biggest trip was to Rio for the 2016 Paralympics. I was working support for the Nepali swim team. I had never been on a flight that long and it was exhausting. But being in Brazil with people from all over the world with all kinds of disabilities was magical. Now I want to go to America.
Sita hopes her legacy will be that of an international activist as well as a committed working mother, all from the seat of a wheelchair. Her accomplishments, especially coming from a low-income country, can inspire women of all abilities all around the world.